Alright, let's get into the Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 237 review. Full translations are finally out. There was a lot of dialogue in this chapter and a lot of hints towards future events in this series, so let's get into it. And this chapter opened up with Kashimo still midair coming straight to Sukuna after he killed Gojo. And we cut out to see the ominous floating Urame, and she looking like a Head and Shoulders commercial, I'm gonna be honest. And I found this part hilarious because Urame even gets her own title card and it calls her the Frozen Star, Urame. But then we get to see Hakari jump in right on top of Urame. I don't really know what he jumped off of, maybe he just jumped off the ground. And Hakari, being a chief, says, "I made a promise, sorry, you're not going anywhere." And I'm guessing this was just a promise to Kashimo that he'll handle Urame because Kashimo was not all that surprised she showed up in the first place. And Hakari then proceeds to crack a domain expansion open midair. In my actual spoiler review, I wondered if he was in jackpot already to get here so fast, but I don't hear any music, so I don't think he is, but he's about to be. And I never thought I wanted to see Hakari versus Urame so badly, but I want to see this guy beat up this Smurf, what can I say? Even if Urame got one shot by Gojo, Kusakabe called her a monster, so I'm guessing Hakari has his work cut out for him. But despite Hakari trapping her in the domain, her frozen ice block melts and drops something down to Sukuna. And we get the reveal that Yoruzu's gift to Sukuna was one of his original curse tools from the Heian era, the Kamutoke, or the Vajra, which is what a lot of people have been talking about for many years at this point. And Sukuna, getting nostalgic about having his old curse tool again, says, "This takes me back," as he summons down a lightning strike directly on top of Kashimo. But Kashimo survives due to the cursed energy trait that makes him immune to electrical attacks, which is pretty useful in this scenario. And is it kind of goofy to get the lightning weapon delivered to you perfectly in time to fight the lightning guy? I mean, kind of, but it's also what we all wanted to see, right? But following this, I think we get what is the most important bit of dialogue in this entire chapter, which is Kashimo asking Sukuna, "Were you always the strongest, or did you become this way?" And Sukuna says, "Who knows, I was born a cursed, unwanted wretch, that much I can say." And Kashimo, he is taken aback by this. He says, how can you connect with people? How can you show affection to those beneath you? Because Kashimo never could. He says that if somebody was weaker than him, he viewed them as feeble and inferior. And we see Sukuna's eyes, they drift off into the Heian Era Flashback, as Kashimo says, "Enlighten me. Is strength in solitude, or is searching for greater power simply the burden of the strong?" But Sukuna, being Sukuna, does not give Kashimo a straight answer and simply says, "My, you are so greedy. Both of you want so much." And I want to break this dialogue down for a second because Sukuna here, he's yapping. He knows exactly what he did to get this strong. And the way he responds to Kashimo asking him how he became strong, he sounds bitter. And that's probably a pretty core part of Sukuna in general that we saw all the way back in 214. And even before that, because Sukuna has been getting progressively more development as we have gone further into the coming games, especially from 200 onwards when we got the reveal that he is the Fallen. Sukuna knows why he's the Fallen, he knows he's irredeemable, and he is bitter as fuck about somebody like Yuji for reasons that are probably about to be revealed. And I've seen a lot of conversation of people saying, is Sukuna just the main character? Is he about to have his MC moment? But that's not really the takeaway here. And this seems like it's in preparation for a Yuji backstory reveal because Yuji and Sukuna, they are pretty likely related on a deeper level than him just being a vessel. Especially after Sukuna's dialogue of being an unwanted child in this chapter, people are jumping on the twin theory pretty hard because the options for who Yuji is to Sukuna are very quickly narrowing down. And if they are twins and that is where this is headed, I do think there is a thematic weight to the idea the Six Eyes inheritor saved Ryomen Sukuna's brother and Sukuna at the same time. Those are my thoughts on Sukuna's dialogue here. I'll probably go a lot deeper into it on another video because Jujutsu Kaisen's twin theory is becoming pretty prominent in the fandom right now. But after Sukuna's dialogue here, Kashimo goes straight in to the hand-to-hand combat or the pole combat and does absolutely nothing. But within 2 seconds, he drops a pole and activates his curse technique release, Phantom Beast Amber, and he went from doing nothing against Sukuna in melee to making Sukuna make this face, and he proceeds to land about 90% of his punches directly onto Sukuna's noggin, and he turns into a Deku tree and shoots out what sounds to be a sonic blast here. When you make Sukuna say too loud after your attack, you know you've made it. And the explanation for Kashimo's curse technique is that he transforms his body to add any phenomena produced by electricity as a weapon in his arsenal. taking his body beyond the limits of mankind, which is why at the end his body will crumble and he'll probably disintegrate. Because this is anime and they are in the dusty anime battle pit, and only one thing happens in the dusty anime battle pit, and that is a plethora of characters dying. Kashimo landing his hits on Sukuna builds up the necessary amount of charges to fire off his sure hit lightning. It looks like it directly hits Sukuna in an explosion. As the narrator says, Sukuna had one alternative to healing his body beyond RCT that was one use, that he had been intentionally holding back this entire time as he emerges from the smoke as the four-armed original True Form Sukuna. So how healed is Sukuna from the incarnation? It looks like his body's pretty much fully healed. That's what it makes it sound like. He pretty much just transformed into a whole ass new body, so for all we know, he might be able to do a domain next chapter or something. And if we roll all the way back to chapter 226, there was an interesting bit of dialogue where Gojo, who I'm going to take the word of because he's got 6 eyes, said the heart of Malevolent Shrine is the shrine, not Sukuna himself. And while Meimei and Kusakabe brushed it off, Yuji also noted this and wondered what would happen if you were to destroy it. So if he does prove capable of doing this, there is a previously set up method that these students can attempt to get out of Malevolent Shrine without just beating on Sukuna like Gojo did. And these students watching Gojo fight Sukuna this entire time, it's gotta count for something. They've seen the mechanics of Malevolent Shrine and his domain far more than they would have otherwise. As for the students showing up on the battlefield, we only got to see Hakari this chapter, but I am very much looking forward to seeing characters like Yuta, because we haven't gotten to see Yuta do anything in so long. And quite frankly, it'll just be refreshing to see Yuta do something besides sweat in a chair for like 12 chapters. And Kenjaku did state that Yuta Okotsu, he is the leader of the heavy hitters, or at least he's leading this squad. And seeing all of these characters interact with Sukuna for the first time, we got a little glimpse of it with Maki, but I think it's a really cool thing because they've been so separate from this plotline for so long, and now it's all converging. Angel said that her days of combat are over, but she can still perform Jacob's Ladder, so if they can find a way to drop that on Sukuna, that is not a bad plan. But I have to say, I'm not sure if throwing bodies at Sukuna is the answer to defeating him, because we got this setup prior to this fight even occurring that Yuji got this book on the soul. And the further we get into JJK, the soul becomes more prominent. We saw this soul swapping ability from Yuji. A lot of people think he's just going to swap with Sukuna, but I think there will be more to it than that. Yuji really is the wild card here. He was built by Kenjaku to contain the very guy they're fighting right now and coexist with him, and that is no small feat. Depression amps in Jujutsu Kaisen, they are a set-up thing since like the first 50 chapters, or what I call the sacred text, because nobody actually read these, they just watched the anime. And they all just watched their sensei die, and Yuji Itadori, he has a latent potential that Kenjaku is fully expecting, so I think we should expect something impressive from him. And maybe when all is said and done, we'll be able to look back on Jujutsu Kaisen as Grasshopper Fight being foreshadowing for Yuji matching blow to blow with a four-arm Sukuna. Because the black flashes from Sukuna, now he's in this form, they're probably on their way, and they're definitely on their way from Yuji Itadori. And it's a little hard for me to contain my excitement because I do love seeing all the students' abilities. Characters like Maki, characters like Yuta, Hakari, they have such a tremendously different way of fighting that seeing it all coalesce together with a Sukuna CT reveal, it's gonna be cool. And we also have the Kashimo fight to look forward to, which is something I've been waiting for personally. I know some people aren't really that interested, but those are my overall thoughts on this chapter. I've got to talk about Megumi and Yuji sometime coming up soon, but on the topic of Megumi, he's not dead. He will return. Bruce Banner will come back. Gojo even came into the fight expecting Sukuna to be fully incarnated. Nobody really expected it to be saved as a battle strategy, not even Kenjaku. And the idea of Gojo being so happy and chipper that Megumi is a fucking Hulk monster now that is never coming back, I doubt he would ever do that. And that's all I've got to say on this one, but if you like content like this, subscribe for more. And as always, thanks for watching.